Won't you please, could you please won't you be my gutters? Hi gutters, how are you today? Kevin Goatee back with listener episode number 2. Blake Felton has chosen to do one of the films that Kevin Israel and I swore could never be attempted, and that is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Wow, the original Indiana Jones trilogy now has been on all Gutting the Sacred Cows. Can you believe this? We can't. Before we get to it, guttingthesacredcow.com. Every day for blog articles and fun stuff. Of course, the merch shop. Grab a shirt, grab a hoodie, long sleeves, whatever. Do not forget to please leave us a 5-star rating, 2 or 3 sentence review on the podcast platform of your choice. And if you want to advertise, guttingthesacredcow at gmail.com. And now we get to it. Dun, 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 dun. Blake Felton doing Raiders of the Lost Ark later.
Gather round, here's what I know. It's just that this cow has got to go. I know some people kinda like it, yeah, it's trending right now. Yeah, that doesn't matter, cause we're gutting the sacred cow.
Shampoo is better. I go on first and clean the hair. Conditioner is better. I leave the hair silky and smooth. Oh, really, fool? Really?
Oh, really, fool? Really?
Oh, it looks like Kevin Israel finally got a quote.
What was I supposed to do today? Have 5 daiquiris? Oh, I did that.
Hey, this is Frank's shirt. Or is my favorite, it's Nudie Magazine Day.
Nudie Magazine Day. Man, in college, that movie was just fucking amazing.
That was a senior when I was in high
I
school.
haven't seen it in years. I don't know if it holds up, but we quoted that entire movie during college.
And you stopped quoting it as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are funny moments in it still. Kevin Goatee, Kevin Israel, and I will say he admits that he knows the movie is Billy Madison. But listen, I'm sure you guys would have all given him shit if you didn't state that. So here we go. We're here, and this is part 2 of our listener contest. As we're joined by Blake Fulton. Blake, how are you? What's going
happening,
on?
Blake?
Doing good, guys. How are y'all?
Magical. Blake won the contest, one of the contests for our pick a film from our fans and try and take one down. And Blake took one I thought that would never, ever, 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 ever face public scrutiny. Kevin Israel, this is
he did this. I think he did this just to be a contrarian. I feel like this was a plot.
I'm dying to hear his argument because he chose the third in this series that we've done on this podcast, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean,
we went it backwards too.
We did. I was just going to say, we started at Last Crusade in episode 3 of a year ago. We did Temple of Doom, and here we are where it all began. Man, this is going to piss people off. Indiana Jones actually, it's just Raiders of the Lost Ark. 1981 budget of $20 million, a box office haul of $389.9 million. Turn that into 2021 dollars, $60.3 million budget. Turn that into 2021 money. Ready, Avengers? $1.174 billion.
God damn. And that feels right for this movie.
Well, I have I have one of my fun facts that will explain why to that, how it masked that. The obvious answer, well, not part of this fun facts, is there are not the same number of films coming out in 1981 at the frequency of 2 and 3 per week, whereas maybe be one every 2 or 3 weeks in the 70s, 80s. Yeah, for sure.
Especially in this genre, appealing to this audience.
Oh, please. It appeals. This one, well, this appeals to everybody.
Right.
IMDb, as we all know, is a scale 1 through 10. Blake Fulton, what do you think the IMDb score is for Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Oh, it's obviously going to be high. I'd say somewhere. Yeah, IMDb seems to be a little bit lower than Rotten Tomatoes on a lot of this. I'd say maybe a 9.2.
Kevin Israel,
9.6.
8.4.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
Lord, I thought.
Kevin Israel, Rotten Tomatoes 1 through 100. What did the critics give Raiders of the Lost Ark?
91%.
Blake,
I'm gonna go a little higher because I think that'll be. I'd say 93.
well, unlike last night, we don't have a contestant with 2 showcases. That's for sure. 95% for the critics. Blake, what is the audience score for Rotten Tomatoes?
All right, so if critics said 95, I'd have to say audience have to be 90. Let's say 96.
Kevin Israel?
I'll just go one better and say 97.
We have a winner of a show, 2 showcases, and that is Blake Shell, 96. There was not much wiggle room on that one to try and $1 him. I know you had to get it dead nuts on. We all know that one. Quotes. I hate snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? And the other one, I think that I'm very surprised it's not more in today's lexicon. Throw me the idol, I'll throw you the whip. As opposed to when I would do that with friends. You go, if I want something they have and vice versa, throw me the idol, I'll throw you the whip. Kevin Israel, quotes.
It was a bad date.
Oh, yes.
And I'm making this up as I go. Not the most quotable movie, but the
Not
quotes
at all.
that are, I mean, the Snakes line is iconic.
I dare say that Last Crusade was the most cool. I take that back. Temple of Doom, only because of Short Round, is more quotable than Last Crusade.
Yeah, and that the dinner scene, like everything, every word uttered in the dinner scene is quotable.
Chilled monkey brains. How about you, Blake? Anything quote-wise jump out at you?
Yeah, there were a couple actually that weren't mentioned. There's one part where he says, "It's not the years, honey, it's the mileage." That one kind of stands out for me. But that's it. Other than the ones you guys said.
Yeah, this is the least quotable IJ film, as they would say. But that's the deal. 5 fun facts. We all know who was slated to be Indiana Jones originally, right? Tom Selleck. But here are some names that were considered as well. Some of these you may go, I get it. Some of these may go, what the fuck? Mark Harmon was one of the names thrown in the mix. Good old Freddie Shoop from Summer School. Sam Shepard, I have no idea who that is. Michael Biehn from Terminator and Aliens and Tombstone fame. Bruce Boxleitner, the Scarecrow of Mrs. King is the only thing I know him from. And none other than Don Johnson himself, Don Johnson. Now, the women consider
I could see that.
Yeah, I could too. I could see Mark Harmon definitely, but Tom Selleck.
Yeah. I have to look up what Mark Harmon looked like in the 80s.
Summer School. Have you not seen that film 150 times? No. Okay.
Summer School, no.
That's 80s cheese at its finest. Well, not near as Commando's finest.
Oh yeah, with the dog and the sock.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a young Courtney Thorne Smith. Ooh la la. Oh, and a lot of vagina from Austin Powers.
Yeah, you know what? A young Mark Harmon does kind of look like Harrison Ford, actually.
Consider for the role of Marion, Jane Seymour, Mary Steenburgen. Didn't see that coming. Sean Young, Dee Wallace, E.T.'s or Elliot's mom in E.T., and Barbara Hershey.
They clearly had the exact type of woman that they wanted Marion to be.
Well, Dee
Wallace, she wasn't going to be a knockout.
Yeah. They're all like, these are like the Jennifer Anistons of the early 80s. The cute, but not enough to make guys' tongues fall out of their mouth and eyes bulge out like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. Except Jane Seymour. I think she's quite fetching.
She was Dr. Quinn, right?
Medicine Woman. Oh, you know it.
Yeah.
She was also in a James Bond film, Live and Let Die, which
that's right.
doesn't hold up. And Danny DeVito was supposed to play Sala, but could not get out of his contract for Taxi.
Well, because Salah was supposed to be Egyptian, right?
He was in this. He was Egyptian, yes.
So yeah, but I mean, and the actor they had, whose name is I'm blanking on, is
Jonathan Rhys Davies. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Number 2, at first they used 2,000 snakes, but Spielberg wanted more. So they raided all the pet shops in London and wrangled up an astoundingly high total of 10,000 snakes for that scene.
What did they do with the snakes afterwards?
They saved them for Pee-wee's Big Adventure where the pet shop was on fire. That scene. By the way, tangent. I caught up on Newsroom today, and in the scene, and the third episode is the girl who was in Hot Shots and Big Top Pee-wee, the Italian gal, Valeria Gold.
Oh yeah,
she's in this, and time's not kind to her. Number 3, the mine carts and running behind the gong in Temple of Doom were originally in the script for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I think we talked about that when we did Temple of Doom.
You're right, we did. The face melting scene in the end of this film almost got it an R rating.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty graphic for the time.
Yeah, that was before PG-13 too, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. First PG-13 film was
Temple of Doom.
Wrong. That's what I thought it was, and then I did my research.
Oh, and we went through this
it was
on
in
Temple
84.
of Doom.
It was
it
84.
Gremlins?
No. Red Dawn.
Oh wow. I think I've always thought it was Temple of Doom.
I did too. It was one of those. What's that called when you
Mandela
effect? Jinx. Number 5, Raiders was in the top 10 for. Want to take a guess how many straight weeks Raiders was in the top 10 for movies?
Well, because to your point that there weren't as many movies coming out, I feel like it probably had a good 25-week run.
Okay. Blake, want to venture a guess?
Top 10? God, it might be more than that. I'd say close to 50.
Give me a number, not close to.
50.
50. And Kevin, what's your number?
24, I think I said.
Kevin, you're not even close. 41 straight weeks.
God damn.
I mean, we're talking just shy of a year that's straight out. That's Jaws and Star Wars kind of, tenure. Well, unfortunately, we didn't have anyone because I forgot to put this out there. So I'm sorry for all the Ask a Gutters, all the usual folks. I will flagellate myself later on for that. So we're going right to the meat of the heart and the heart of the matter. We're going to go right to Blake, Kevin, Israel, because it's now time to gut the sacred cow.
All right, guys. So just for starters, I kind of as a background, I love the franchise and the character. I do. I love Indiana Jones. I love the movies. And when I say the franchise, I'm not talking about that abomination of a fourth film. This is it's strictly the original trilogy from the 80s. But I generally love it. But the problem comes in here with some of these scores. This is an AFI top 100 film of all time. It's got mid-90s scores that we just went over, and it's just racked with problems. And it's not just problems that affect the movie. It's in my opinion, first off, it's the worst of the 3 original trilogy films. I would put them Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, Raiders in that order. But it doesn't just have problems itself. It causes problems with the franchise that are only created by this movie. It causes problems with the character that are only created by this movie. And I'll even posit a theory that it even caused retroactive problems with another iconic movie of the time that I'll get to in a little bit.
Ooh, multi-layered meta arguments. Someone's too message, and that someone is me.
So let's start off with the character. So, obviously this is set up to be a character that is, the kind of the rough around the edges, roguish kind of Batman anti-hero, and not the squeaky clean Superman hero. But even before, just kind of across the entire franchise, you have problems with the fact that it's such a rip-off character from different places. It's the Alan Quartermain League of Extraordinary Gentlemen look, which is almost dead on. I mean, if you look back at some of those early renderings of the Alan Quartermain character, I mean, it is the exact same get up and garb. As far as the kind of the way he treats ladies, and he's kind of that devilish, devil may care type of guy. It is straight out of the Bond films, right? And it was cool when Bond did it, where it was from film to film, there's a new woman and they don't feel any need to explain what happened to the old one because that's who the character is, right? And that implied kind of character aspect was cool when you're the first person to do it, but when you just kind of ram it into this other character, it loses a little of its luster. But so it's those two, and then everything else is Han Solo. It's the I'm the hero, but I'm still kind of rough around the edges and all of that. And even so much that they took the same damn guy to play it, right? They cast the same guy to play the same type of character, and for a series that was created by the same person that created Star Wars. And so I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but a lot of the any big Star Wars fan and a lot of movie fans in general kind of know that one of the big problems with Star Wars, the original movie, that A New Hope, one of the things that people have a problem with is when Lucas kind of after the fact rewrote one of the scenes and had Greedo shoot first, whereas the mantra is always Han shot first, right? And that's right. A part of his character. That's an important part because it's like he's not this guy that's going to be so chivalrous to wait until you fire first. It's once he sees it going that way, he's going to do whatever he has to win, right?
Right.
And so Indiana Jones is so similar to Han Solo that, there's that iconic scene in Indiana Jones where, the guy comes out with a sword and he's waving it all over the place. And Indiana Jones just kind of pulls out the revolver and shoots him, right? And turns around. And so, that's an iconic scene in this film. It added some comedic relief. But, when you hear back and hear Lucas talk about why he changed Han Solo and had Greedo shoot first, it was a bunch of bullshit. Like, well, it was really kind of meant to be that all along, and you just didn't see it because we didn't have a wide angle view. But that's completely contrary to the original script of Star Wars. So I would posit that after the fact, Lucas looked back and saw that these characters were so much alike and he can't change the scene in Indiana Jones because everybody would notice it. So I think he really tried to slip under the radar, changing that scene in Star Wars for the whole purpose of not making it so much like Indiana Jones, and in the process, fucked up Star Wars.
That is a fascinating conspiracy theory.
I'm very entrenched in this argument. Continue, sir. Continue.
Yeah, so that's where I was getting at about it screwing up other iconic films at the time. But the other problems with the character are, that are solely created by this film is, there's a fine line between rough around the edges and just dirty fucking asshole, right? And so in this film, the first time he meets Marion, she has this line that says, "I was a child, I was in love, it was wrong, and you knew it." So that are on its own, that has some pretty nasty implications. Now, you could think, well, maybe she was 21 and immature and he was 34, right? It's like, okay, not too bad. But there's actually some other media that outside of the films, there's all the comic books and other stuff, but it was something canon to the film where it kind of came out that Marion was actually 15 and he was like 26 or 27. So we're talking like full on statutory rape here. So it's that kind of takes us outside of the realm of, roguish kind of anti-hero and starts to move us into the realm of bad guy. But then there's one other thing that I think might be even worse. And, we've already talked about, or we'll kind of back up, Temple of Doom was shot actually as a prequel to Raiders.
Right.
And so the events from Temple of Doom happened about a year before Raiders. And so you come into Raiders and, no mention of Willie, like that's, they took that James Bond approach, completely understand that. But here's the question I have is, Where the fuck is Short Round?
Excellent
That guy-
question. Excellent.
that-
Love him. Love him.
That guy took, he took this kid out of Southeast Asia, took him to India, put him in all this danger in a temple of doom. And then the last place you see them is they're all kind of jumping up and down with the Indians. And then a year later, and there's no mention or sight of it. If Indiana Jones was just talking to Marcus Brody before he leaves and said something like, "Be sure to look after the kid," or something like that, okay, then that's fine. But like, I guess he just dropped him off at the nearest orphanage and kind of got back to his own life. Because
he found an adoption family, like if I can, pick a Christmas film, they find the scamp on the street. Exactly right.
Madonna walked to the village and he was like, "Hey, I got one for you."
No, he's too light for Madonna.
That'd be Angelina Jolie, right?
Angelina Jolie, yeah.
So those two things kind of take him out of the character of being just kind of a roguish guy to being a pretty bad freaking guy. So that's the problems with the character. The plot itself, and again, this is action movies. You expect you kind of give them a pass sometimes on plot, right? Except when you're going to be on the AFI Top 100 and have 90s grades, you can't have glaring plot holes. And so some of the problems I saw with the plot in general was it just got repetitive to me. There's the great opening scene, which I think that opening scene caused so many people to have so much nostalgia because it just grabbed people from the beginning that they ignored so much else about the film. But the plot just got repetitive after that. It was, we're going to search for something, we're going to find it, we're going to lose it, we're going to escape some trap, we're going to chase them down, and then we're going to just rinse and repeat, kind of the whole film. And so it kind of got to where it drug a little, just dragging from action sequence to action sequence. And then another part of the plot, and this one's become kind of a popular, kind of a popular thing to say recently, with its kind of being mentioned in other media. But it is true that Indiana Jones plays no role in the outcome of this film. If he sits at home on the couch, they go find the Ark. Maybe they take a little longer to get it, actually. They take it to the island, they open it, and all of their faces melt. And so that the fact that he plays no role, and that's some people would say, "Oh, well, it's a character study," or, "Oh, well, it's meant to show that no matter what he does, it doesn't matter." But it'd be fine if that movie was set up that way, but it wasn't. It was set up to be a hero.
Let me interject for 1 second. I see the argument. You could say the same about Last Crusade, because once the Nazis go in, break in, take the fucking Grail, they can't get past the seal because everything goes to fucking hell and the cup is lost forever. The only thing they can do is hopefully drink from the cup, escape with their eternal souls, and live onward and upward. But you can make the same argument for Last Crusade.
Oh, fair enough. But again, Last Crusade isn't on the AFI Top 100 list either. So
that's a goddamn shame too.
No, I'll agree with you on that. But whatever kind of counter argument you make about why it's not a big deal, or it's okay, or you can get past that, the way I kind of think of it is, it's kind of like falling asleep and you're dreaming that you're kind of playing the Tommy Lee role in the Pam and Tommy Lee video from back in the early 90s, right? Or late 90s, early 2000s, right? And then, all of a sudden you wake up and it's the dog licking your balls, right? I mean, it's, it could be worse. It could be the cat and that scratchy ass tongue licking them, but it's still far away from what you thought was going on.
Does your border collie have a set of D cups that won't quit? Is that what's going on over there?
Right.
That analogy was fascinating.
Yes.
So anyway, that's kind of the other plot point. And then the third plot point is like, they didn't really go into the whole. I could understand if the Nazis were going to try to destroy the Ark, right? But they were trying to capture it, and maybe presumably thought it had some type of magical power, which, having the Hitler-led Nazi party chasing down the Jewish Ark of the Covenant for purposes of some type of magical power, that really doesn't track based on, if he really believed in that was the case, it'd be hard to believe that he was going to commit all the mass, the greatest instance of mass genocide in the history of our world, if he really believed in all that. And so that kind of always struck me a little different as well. And then just going through a couple of the scenes, that opening scene, everybody loves it, but it has its own problems. And again, if he was going and trying to get that little the idol for the money, right, or that it's this big piece of chunk of gold, all right, that makes sense. But having it to just take it and put it in a museum, the problem I have with that is that the archaeological find here is this freaking intricate, incredibly woven system of traps in this cave. That's the archaeological find. It's not this bauble at the end of the tunnel, right? And so that's part of a problem. And then some of the traps, I want to know how they had this light activated motion sensor trap that shoots out stuff like from that this ancient group is going to shoot out from way back then.
Because Mayans, Blake. All you got to know is Mayans.
Right. Well, and then on top of that, they're in the rainforest, and somehow they find this perfectly round 12-foot tall boulder that rolls perfectly down this and fits perfectly in this cavern. And so how they found that in the rainforest where there aren't a whole lot of rocks anyway, that's beyond me. And then kind of the whip. That whip is the most amazing whip that has ever been created on the face of the planet, and like it's so much so that it distracts me at some points from trying to decide whether the whip or Wonder Woman's lasso of truth has more magical power to it.
Yeah, but one of those gave me a boner, the other one didn't.
Right. Well,
I really liked whips.
Yeah. Well, I kept expecting at some point to have this 45-minute origin story of the whip where you find out that it was made by Hattori Hanzo and was created to singe the hair off of Lucy Liu's taint or something like that. That it just had that magical power. But so that's the opening scene, which was despite the action and the way it grabs people, it still had its problems. And then kind of jumping forward all the way to the end with the face melting scene. First off, I don't know why after this guy has got away from them 5 different times, they capture him again and just decided, you know what, we're just going to tie him to this fucking post now. Don't not kill him. We're just going to tie him and her to this fucking post. It's like, all right, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but proceed. And so at this point, and this is one of the reasons I think that Indy plays no role in the outcome, and I think it's part of the reason that they didn't create the idea of Hitler going after the Ark to destroy it, is because they had to be so ham-fisted and cram in this face melting scene because they were like, it's this special effects. We got to do special effects, which Star Wars and especially Empire Strikes Back, which was out at the time, had special effects that still hold up fairly well for the time. A lot of movies after that, Jurassic Park, The Matrix, those both still have special effects hold up for the time. But that face melting scene was freaking awful. The effects were absolute garbage. I mean, it's hard to watch it. So it's so awful. But they and I do think that they had to be so ham-fisted to jam all of that in. And then the other thing about that scene that makes sense to me is that, earlier in the movie, Indiana Jones said that he didn't believe in all that magic stuff, which is ironic since he'd already been through the freaking Temple of Doom at this point and saw him, ripping out hearts and magic stones and all of that. But he doesn't believe in magic, but now he does. And it's as simple as closing your eyes. Like, how does closing your eyes and just not looking at that, like whatever was released from there, they're just, oh, he's got his eyes closed. No, nothing to see there. Kind of move on past them. So that doesn't really make sense to me either. And then just running through some highlights of some of the other big problems I had with some of these scenes. One, the fight choreography was just downright bad. It was just, it looked like 1966 Batman and Robin fight choreography. The whole time. It was just like any of the some of the action scenes are fine, but the ones that have anything to do with fight choreographies is just bad. In the map room, he set up the staff, and there's other problems with the staff and its height and things like that. But the biggest problem I had with that is that he's sitting there, and that light was moving across that map room at a blistering pace. It just flew all the way across the room. And then instead of just doing a, kind of like a magnifying glass pinpoint type of precision, there's this great magical laser beam of light that shoots out from the staff. So that was one of the problems there. When he's escaping from the snake pit where he got the ark, they're escaping and they come out right at the Nazi airfield. And they push out two of the most precariously, oddly placed boulders I've ever seen in my life. That is right next to the airfield where they can look, presumably they've been there for a while. And like nobody noticed these, precariously placed boulders that don't fit with the rest of the scene. And that's among other problems there. At the end of the day, I didn't have time to nitpick because there's so many things to nitpick in this movie. But
you had plenty of time. You came up with a goddamn cross-sectional comparison with fucking Han Solo. Yes, you do have plenty of time, you liar.
Oh man! All right, moving to the truck chase scene. Again, there are other problems with that, but the one the guy got a kick out of was, he's riding on the front of the truck, and the car in front of him's like beckoning him to say, hey, "Come on, ram him!" And the car doesn't. This cargo truck apparently has to get up to speed to do that because the car in front of him's not going to slow down. He's beckoning him to ram him, but like the easiest thing to do is for them to slow down a little bit, but it takes time, and they don't let him do that. And then he gets drugged down the back, and that's the way neo-Nazis kill people, dragging them down a dirt road behind a vehicle, and he barely doesn't even have to come out with a road rash. So
he's got that leather jacket. Leather jackets protect from everything.
Yes,
right. And then a couple more. One, when he's on the boat before they take him off and come and hijack the boat, take him to the submarine, and he's doing the whole thing with Marion where it's like, where does it not hurt? He points to his elbow and she kisses it, and then he does his forehead and his eye and his lips. And I know that there's not a single guy that watched this movie that as soon as he started that didn't think to themselves, "Oh, I know where I'm pointing next." And they certainly weren't thinking about stopping at the lips. Everybody knows exactly where he was going to point next, and they just decided to cut it out of the film. And then last thing I have is the submarine. He gets on this submarine, which goes thousands of miles, and clearly was submerged because they were using the periscope at some point. So he either had to jump into this tight ass quartered arrangement with the Nazis on a submarine where there's no like hiding places on a sub. It's meant to be as efficient on space as possible. So he had to either do that or he hung on to the back of the submarine as it was submerged somewhere across the lake.
Like they're keel hauling him like a fucking pirate ship. like John Candy in Great Outdoors as he's water skiing.
That's kind of the argument there. I mean, the big focus is on the grade. I mean, it's a top 100 film, and it's mid 90s, and so it creates problems with the series and the character and with Star Wars, and in my opinion, is the worst of the three films. And so that for that reason, I think it is entirely overrated as an individual film, even though the series is great.
Give me a number 1 to 10.
I'll say a 3, mainly.
Whoa!
Because,
wow! Well, I didn't expect that.
Me neither.
Look, because it screws up so many other properties. That's the problem. It screws up the series. It screws up other properties. I'd say it gets a point for some of the action scenes being good in a vacuum if they didn't have the fight choreography in it, and then you automatically start with 2 points for a John Williams score. So,
that's fair. John Williams makes damn near everything good except for episode 1. Wait a minute. If you're giving this a 3, what are you giving Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Oh, I mean, that's got to be a 0. Like, there's nothing redeeming about that film, in my opinion.
What's worse than that, Napoleon Dynamite or Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Napoleon Dynamite is the worst film ever made.
Good. See,
now
we're back.
You know what, though? I would argue that Crystal Skull is actually worse because it took such a great franchise and ruined it. Napoleon Dynamite was just a shitty standalone movie. Crystal Skull could have been good. Well, first of all, we didn't even need it, and it could have been good, but they just made a shitty movie.
Breaks my sequel rule, Kevin Israel. 1, you cannot have another film more than 10 years after the last one. 2, you cannot go from an R to a PG-13, and that destroyed the first part of that rule. Destroyed. And how many sequels have we seen come out years and years after the fact that were good? Answer, not many. The only one I can still think of, top of my head, Tron Legacy. And then, by the way, better than the original Tron. Tron is not good. I digress. 3 out of 10. Wow.
Yeah, that's
Listen, Kevin Israel, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
First of all, let me say well done, Blake. That was as a fan coming on, you know your stuff, you had a plan and you stuck to it. So kudos to you. I want to start off by saying Indiana Jones is not a nice guy. I think you get so lost in the heroics and the action. He's really not a nice guy. And I hate to use this really, really geeky explanation, but I played Dungeons and Dragons. And when you made your characters, you picked what alignment they were, whether they're good, neutral, or evil. And then within those, there was lawful, chaotic, and something else. And if you were like lawful good, you were basically like a priest. And if you're chaotic evil, you were a serial killer. At best, Indiana Jones is lawful neutral. Like he has his concerns and his code, and he lives by that. And I would say that he is actually different than Han Solo. I know on the surface it kind of seems like he is, but I would almost compare him closer to the kid in Whiplash, because he is so obsessed with artifacts, with archaeology. He will screw over everything else to get to that goal, and he's so single-minded about it and you see it throughout the movie. Like he screws over what's her name? Marion a number of times because he wants to get, and it's funny when he goes into the tent and then he leaves her there. In my head, I thought he was going to say, and this is almost Mandela effect, I thought he says, no, it's safer for you to stay here. But it's not. He doesn't do that. He leaves her there because he doesn't want to get caught and he needs to go get the Ark. It has nothing to do with her safety. She could be getting raped or murdered. He doesn't know what's happening to her. He's a dickhead.
Hold on. I'm going to contest that only because, first of all, if they go back to the tent and they see she's gone, they know something is up. Second of all, she's only going to slow him down while he does that.
You're making my point.
Yeah. But listen, but listen, you can't let her run around. If she's gone when they go back in that tent, it's red alert. Everything goes on. Everything is on full watch. That's the best way to kind of say, you know what? Stay here. No suspicions will arise. I'll be back for you.
Kev, I don't disagree with you. Okay. And I would probably have done the same thing. And maybe that makes me not, a really good person hero. And he's not. He's not like a hero saving the world. He's not out there to, he didn't go out there to stop the Nazis. He just wanted this thing. That's why he got into it. And he complains about the Nazis all throughout this franchise. But he's not a roguish like Han Solo. Han Solo is a guy who just wants money, wants to be left alone, and wants to, sort of have a good time. Indiana Jones has an obsession that he's so fixated on. He'll screw over other people, his friends. He'll go out of his way just to get his one goal, and that's all he really cares about. So I think that's an important distinction and an important understanding of the character going into this. And I also think that over the years, he sort of the character morphed into this like hero where he's, like a good guy, but he really isn't. Anyway, that's my diatribe about who Indiana Jones is. As far as your point about then when he shoots the guy when they're in the village and the guy has the sword and he just shoots him. That scene was actually supposed to have a huge fight. There was supposed to be a massive battle, another fist fight. But Harrison Ford had a stomach virus, and that sweat you saw was real. Like he was miserably sick. And so rather than do that, and they didn't even know he was going to do it, he just pulled out the gun and shot him. And that was how the scene went. And it became iconic. But that was the character wasn't even written as that. He was supposed to go and have another huge, poorly choreographed fight scene. And I will say that I agree with you. The fisticuff fight scenes in this movie are pretty rough, but we just recently did Commando, And I got to tell you, compared to the hand-to-hand combat in Commando, this is like close to John Wickian. There, and in a way, the fight scenes are almost more real because it's just that, like when he slugs it out with that big guy by the plane. That's real. That's kind of what a real boxing fight would go down like. Like it'd be a couple of guys punching each other. The bigger guy would start winning. And Indiana Jones only won kind of by luck. It wasn't like he is a small great fighter, but he is. And I would like to know, and I mean, I'm sure it's been covered in other medium, but what's his background? Because he's an archaeologist, and I get that he's an adventurer, but he can fight. He can. I think in one of the movies he flies a plane. And he has
fly yes, land no.
No, right. He has all of these abilities, and it's just amazing to think that he's just an archaeologist. Like he's the coolest archaeologist, and probably the second one to him is Grant from Jurassic Park.
Paleontologist, big difference.
Oh, and he's right, and he was a paleontologist. Good call.
Thank you.
Historical scientist, then I'll say.
Fair. Sustainable.
So he's clearly not a character really obviously founded in reality, but he is a character that formed just an iconic legacy. I think if you can look at a character and say people are still dressing up as this guy for Halloween, that is a huge statement. 40 years after the movie came out, people are still trying to emulate this character, and movies are still trying to recreate a lot of the magic of this movie. That's the boulder scene, which you're 100% right. It is ridiculous. And where they found a perfectly spherical rock to run down a track that's just crazy. And a question about that scene. How is that golden totem still so clean? It was still perfect. It would look like it was just shined the other day. Everything he goes after is always in the art. When they take out the Ark of the Covenant, it still looks perfect. Nothing is ever dusty or that he's trying to find. And speaking of what he's trying to find, one of the things I realized on rewatch that it never occurred to me was that the beginning scene of each of these movies is always like it's like a scene from a previous movie that's just ending. And he never successfully gets whatever it is that he was going after. In this one, he loses the totem. In Temple of Doom, he loses the diamond or whatever that jewel was because he tries to trade it for the serum. And in the third one, it's the flashback to him as a kid, and he loses that other totem to the guy that he models himself after, who has the hat. So apparently that was, I don't know if that was done intentionally, but he never actually gets it. And your point is amazing. You're 100% right that had he literally sat at home, this probably none of this would have ever happened. And I would even go one further. They would have never found the Ark. They only found the Ark because he uncovered it. They only had the first half piece of that, the head of that staff, because the guy burnt his hand, and they were never going to figure it out. They would have worked until Hitler finally said, all right, we've expended enough money, come home. And then if he just waited a while, the Germans would have left. He could have gone in and gotten it and avoided this entire ridiculous adventure. So that's a great point. And I would actually even go it one further.
Oh,
the character that causes me the most problem in this is the monkey. Whose side is the monkey on? This monkey has the strangest character arc I've ever seen in a movie. He starts off as a cute monkey. Then it turns out he's working for the Nazis and he does the Heil Hitler sign. Yes. Then he's back to being a friend. Then he's back with the guy with the patch on his eye. Then he's back with Indiana Jones. Then the guy with the patch on eye gives him a dirty look and he gets scared. And then he ends up back with Indiana Jones in the room. And luckily he's the one who eats the poison date and dies. That's its own movie. The life of that monkey in this movie could have been its own little mini picture because he had a tortured history in this film. And I really want to know a little more about his loyalties because it really confuses me.
And I want to know about the monkey in that film after this film was over, because after you learn how to do the Nazi salute, you can't unring that bell. And I want to see him hanging out at home or wherever he is, just giving the Hitler salute, watching, hang out in the old monkey's retirement home, demanding that the aide put on the newest VHS copy of American History X as he kicks back and enjoys a curb stomping or two while giving the Heil Hitler. Like, can you imagine he goes to kids' birthday parties, because that's what they probably do, rent them out. The kid, juggling dates in the air, fucking jumping around, and starts kicking around Heil Hitler salutes. You fucking kid. That's the true Hollywood story we were robbed of. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think the monkey needs a little more attention. I think we can all agree on that. Your submarine point was fantastic. I had the exact same thing. It looks like they tried to say that the submarine never actually submerged, that it just stayed above water the whole time. And I had the same note, that why were they looking through the periscope if the submarine was above water? I never realized that they never accounted for Indiana Jones's location in or on the submarine during that entire trip. So look, I have a lot of little nitpicky things that I'm not even going to get into, but I do love the end of this movie. The beginning of this movie and the end of the movie are two of my favorite parts of actually the entire movie. I think the beginning is just such a great little encapsulation of who Indiana Jones is. And the end, the idea of this government facility, this just, infinite government facility that has all of these secret, acquired artifacts and whatever else are in those crates, just fascinates me. And it fascinated somebody else so much that they actually made a TV show out of it called Warehouse 13, I think it was called. And it ran for like 3 or 4 seasons, and it was 100% just stolen from this idea. And it's such a cool idea. And they harken back to it in Crystal Skull when he goes to get what was he going there to get? I don't even remember what he was going there to get. But and I think they end up blowing up the facility. But it's just so cool to me. And this movie just builds such a great universe at such an interesting time. And that whole World War II period, and the idea that Hitler was obsessed with the occult, which we've seen in other movies. That was the basis of Hellboy. We've seen it, and it's happened. We've seen it in a couple other movies, and it was true that he actually was, and he was trying to acquire a bunch of different artifacts. But this movie, I watched it. I just watched it today, and I liked watching it. I actually stopped writing notes because I got so into watching it again. And you made a lot of great points, Blake. But for me, this is just such an iconic movie, and he's such a great character, and he can even stand up having a shitty last movie. So, yeah, for me, I'll always love this movie, and it will be, and it still is bulletproof to me.
Give me a number.
This movie's a 9.
Hold on. Now I have one point of that last thing you just said. You love this film. I think you love it maybe because of the franchise and not because of this film. If this was a standalone film, I love to know the level of love you have for it, as opposed to Temple of Doom.
I think this is a great. I think it's a great movie. I think it's divided into a bunch of smaller scenes, like Blake was saying. Like each little scene is its own little adventure, where you find out a little more about Indiana Jones and this whole process. I think it's broken up. It's actually broken up, and I hate to go back to my geek history. It's broken up like a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. And to me, I think it's a great movie. It runs seamlessly. Even the exhibition scene, where he's talking about in the very beginning, he's explaining the whole history of the Ark and everything. That didn't drag. He did such a good job telling that story. I think that I don't think there's any fat on this movie. There's nothing I would take out.
So you gave it a 9. Rank the Indiana Jones films in order for your preference, please.
9. I don't remember what I gave Temple of Doom, but I'd probably give it a 7 or 6.5 or 7. And then
Crusade.
I think I'd probably go back up to a 9 for Crusade. I loved Crusade.
Do you love Crusade more than this or less?
I think it's close to being equal, but for me, I like this one more because it's all Indiana Jones based, and Crusade really it's his dad in him. It becomes like a buddy cop movie.
These notes brought to you by guttingthesacredcow.com, where every day you find fantastic blogs like everyone's favorite That Doesn't Happen. Kevin Israel, have you ever gotten one inside a car dealership and turn on the ignition? No, you have not.
Nope.
Have I? And if someone ever gets into a car and decides to hit the gas, do you stand in front of the car and wave your arms like you're trying to land an airplane? No, that doesn't happen.
Common sense.
Right. Find more things like that on our blog, movie news, movies that we have seen. I will, by the time this drops, I will have fully reviewed the new Bond film. What else do we do? Trailer talk. We're going to talk about, oh God, whatever else is coming up this week. We'll talk about trailers. And that's that. Notes. It's funny to see Dr. Octopus as a slack-jawed tour guide. Alfred Molina's first film is this, by the way. I'm going to make a click sound like Belloc did when he wanted someone chased. So whenever my daughter runs around the playground, I'll go to my wife, kind of like Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and make the wife go chase after her. Hilarious. So Indy's buddy gets 35 blow darts in the back, but none of the tribe takes a single shot at him as he's running toward the airplane. Okay, got it. Good. This is worse than Commando in that sense. The last time I saw a ball that big was watching a porno with Lexington Steel. Hey-o! This is a public service announcement I'm going to decree, and Kevin Israel, you're going to co-sign this, like it or not. All women that attend our next Gutting the Sacred Cow live show must write "love you" on their eyelids, as Indiana Jones students did.
How much did that hurt to do?
It was a labor of love.
Yeah, clearly, literally.
Marion does all these shots in the bar and then immediately carries on like she can operate heavy machinery as if she was shotgunning water. Not even you know what, Indiana Jones? You always came too damn quick anyway. She carries on and fights. If she banged out 15 shots of whatever that was, she'd be blubbering more than Kevin Israel at the end of The Notebook. I'm no lawyer, but I'm pretty sure Indiana Jones did just cop to statutory rape. I was young, you know what you were doing. By the way, if I was young, you know what you were doing. If that's not the title of Scott Baio's autobiography, that's a missed opportunity. Thank you. The sword-wielding guy in Cairo getting shot by Indy always makes me laugh, and all because of one reason. Harrison Ford had diarrhea that day. We've all done a lot of the Lamaze breathing while driving home. Indiana Jones just shoots somebody. I would prefer his method better. Sending in a ton of kids to rescue you is creepy, unless you're Jeffrey Epstein, Jeffrey Jones, or Jeffrey Tambor. Just kidding, Jeffrey Tambor. I don't know if you're a pedophile, but the other two are.
I do have a question about that that maybe you can answer.
Maybe.
When was
the
that
pedophile part?
When was that plan created? When was it decided that those kids were going to run in and surround him and help him get out of that situation?
I have no idea. So listen, I'll let that one slide on the planning category. You said it, Blake, you son of a bitch. That sun disappeared awfully fast in that sunroom. The only thing missing was Indiana Jones running around that room while the Benny Hill theme played. Snapping that sun rod in two is a clear indication that someone was down there, and that object can easily be fixed up and taped back up to find out where exactly to fucking look for the Ark. Indiana Jones may be able to solve archaeological mysteries, but killing somebody and getting away with it? Nope. I've said it before, and I'll say it again to the goddamn, to the end of time. I'm insanely jealous of people that can put their hat on their face on an airplane and fall asleep. That's mystical to me. Mystical. Do you think Indiana Jones, when he was banging Marion, do you think he looked at her pussy and goes, "It belongs in a museum"?
Or like cleaning off the Ark, did he go?
Yeah. Spit on it. Give her a chicken cutlet while down there. We're going to die anyway. Might as well go out with one more bang, right? The last time I saw that many snakes in a room, they were asking me to bring 7 friends so I could perform for 5 minutes at Dangerfield's Comedy Club.
Jeez.
That joke is for Kevin Israel and Kevin Israel only. You guys, how did you miss this? The Nazi in the black trench coat and hat brought nothing to the table. Absolutely fucking nothing. He burned his hand. He had a creepy laugh, and he had a cute little moment where he had the hat with the coat with the coat hanger and put his coat on it. Fucking all his moments felt so forced and contrived. I didn't buy anything he did or said for a second. I go, this is square peg, round hole territory for me. I'm not buying that. Nope.
It's a very solid point because they really built him up like he was going to be this terrifying character who had some like either evil ability or evil like he was going to be like the torture guy or something. And you're right, he does nothing other than looks creepy.
Nothing. I can suspend disbelief for a lot of things in these films like these, but God damn it anyway. Scaling a huge statue, dislodging it from the ceiling, and then getting it to crash through a wall is a bit much. And then climbing up through the wall and pushing out one huge granite fucking rock to escape. Do you know how many slaves it takes to get those things in place? Probably 6. Motherfucking Indiana Jones just heave-hose that bitch right on through. Poof, we're out here. Nope. Belloc is a boring antagonist. Sure, he's there at the right time to win some mini battles, but there was no real true loathsome feelings. I get Nazis are the true enemy in this film, but I tell you what, Mola Ram is a top 10 villain of all time. Elsa and the other Nazi general and Donovan in Crusade, far more evil and awesome and loathsome than in this. These villains did not bring the heat in this film, nowhere near the other ones had. How the fuck did that German U-boat track down the ship Indiana Jones was on? No one flipped on that. No crew on the African guy's ship flipped. So you could have been like, oh, he radioed coordinates in there. No one knew where the fuck they were. How did that U-boat know where to find them? It's not like I see Kevin Israel in the grocery store going, hey, fancy seeing you here. No, you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Fuck you. Did Belloc jump the guy who played Jambi from Pee-wee's Big Adventure for that costume when they opened the Ark? Where did he get that uniform? Where? Did he stash it on the U-boat? Can you imagine him doing a little fashion show on that U-boat with the German officers snickering at him as he preens in front of a mirror? Where is your magic carpet? Ooh.
Well, and also to that point, where did he get a dress from?
Right.
How did he just have this dress out in the middle of the desert that happened to fit her perfectly?
Brought it in. No idea. Let's see here. Why the hell did they have to go to the bottom of Greece to open the Ark? Why not make it a quicker trip? Go to Africa. Go where you were. And if something nuclear happens when you open the Ark, it's a desert. But instead, you go to the bottom of Greece, schlep there, and then have to make your way back up to Germany. It doesn't, for Germans, not very efficient, people. Come on.
I don't like you doing this Jew ritual. Why was it a Jew ritual? First of all, the 10 Commandments are in the New Testament too. They're in the Bible.
Right.
And they didn't do anything, I guess he was doing some kind. I don't know what that was that he was doing.
I know this is 1981, but you said it. These effects are very rough. Listen, they're not Ghostbusters bad, awful, but they could definitely use a toucher of their Ghostbusters effects are terrible. So don't defend. You like the film, that's fine. The effects are dog shit. But this could use a touch up. This film needed a big touch up. I mean, especially that scene with the woman's face at the ooh, holy shit. It's terrible.
I thought the worst was when they're just discovered the Ark and there's a storm going on in the background.
Oh, yeah.
And it looked exactly like they were just standing in front of a movie screen with the storm going on.
I mean, the only thing missing was there is no God, only Zool.
You're really going to fight, man. This is it.
I'd like to lock up Jesse Eisenberg, Aquafina, and Wes Anderson in that same storage facility where they locked up the Ark. This is a great movie, and it is an absolute trailblazer film and character. Some of the most iconic scenes in film history are in this film. The boulder chase, the snakes, the fight in front of the airplane. But this story is too choppy for me. The villains, not good. Nope. Much like Lethal Weapon and other franchises, Indiana Jones finds his true footing in later films. You can't tell me the Indiana Jones in this film is better than he is in either Crusade or Temple of Doom, because they figured it out. They threw more jokes in there. You learn a little bit more. No. Marion is fine. Sala is fine. This film didn't hit me like everybody else has. Last Crusade is my favorite by far. I'm with you, Blake. I'm with you. Every light is green in that movie. I love it. And you're right, Kevin. Is it because Connery's in there too? Sure. But you know what? There's always room for Jello, as they say. I don't hate Temple of Doom, but Mola Ram's the top 10 villain. I think he's probably the best villain in this entire franchise by far. I know this is a good film. I just prefer Last Crusade over this. And I prefer Temple of Doom over this very slightly. Wow. This didn't do it for me as a kid. I was like, all right, it's good, but they don't find the footing until later. It's not a big jump from Last Crusade to this. So don't go, oh, fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. Your shitty opinion. No, it's not a far cry. There is a lot of good in Temple of Doom. Listen, I get the arguments. I just prefer it better. I know this is a story-wise better film, but I prefer this. I prefer the other two over this. This doesn't pass the remote test. I'm sorry. After the boulder scene, nope. Crazy. Nope. Temple of Doom, Last Crusade without question. This, what? I have to tune in to see what's the part I have to tune in to see, Kevin Israel, besides the boulder and the fight, maybe the boxing fight. By the way, the blood looks like someone threw Kool-Aid on the cockpit window. Good. Bravo. What are the scenes I have to see? Go ahead. I'm waiting.
I mean, literally, like I said, each little chunk of the movie, each little separate adventure, I think is great. I had actually, I think the scene with the when he's on the boat and then he swims over and everybody gets all excited. I think that's a great scene. That it's such a little throwaway scene. The scene where he obviously the plane fight scene. I like the scene in the temple where he's dealing with the snakes and then. Albeit the light does move very fast. I mean, I think all of these, so many of the scenes are iconic and definitely rewatchable.
Not in my book. It's not. Does not pass the remote test. Listen, I know it's great. I know it's a great film. It's just not as great as everyone makes it out to be. It's number 3 in the list. Listen, 7 out of 10. Good. Very good. Good. Not very good. Very good. I'll stick with that. Very good. Crusade puts us away, and I give a slight edge with Temple of Doom over this. Again, maybe it's because I do like the buddy cop aspect. Maybe not because it's lighter. I don't think this was darker, but the whole arc thing was just and the end with the souls. Fuck you, and the light in the sunroom. Fuck you. It didn't have that impact with me as it had with other people. I think the Grail story is much better. It's very similar to this one with the whole religious aspect of it. I think this is overrated. It's good. It's not as great as everyone says it out to be. 7 out of 10. I expected you to say 5 out of 10, Blake. I'll be honest. Maybe even a 6, but 3.
Well, I might have been a little rough on it, but
I mean,
it's because I think the other films are so great, and I think that it caused problems with those films.
Yeah. Critics 5-star reviews. One of the all-time greats, Harrison Ford's perfection plus as Indiana Jones, so an iconic character that the AFI cite him as the second greatest movie hero of all time. You ready to hear who number 1 was and number 3 is? Sorry, I take it back. Number 3, I think you can figure out, is James Bond. The number 1 all-time hero according to the AFI, which is another reason why you should hate the AFI.
I assume it's not Luke Skywalker.
No, it's Atticus Finch.
Oh, Jesus.
Fuck you. Listen, this blowhardiness surpassed anything that Hurricane Sandy could muster. Eat my ass. Who's running around saying Atticus Finch is the greatest hero of all time? No. Quint the Captain in Jaws is better hero. Robin, Chris O'Donnell in Batman and Robin is a better hero than Atticus Finch.
I've never even seen the movie.
What? Batman and Robin?
No. To Kill a Mockingbird.
I did in school. It's good. It's not, again, everyone wants to blow it because of the social, fingerprint on it. You can't do it on that. It's good. It's not, people are assholes. To quote the man himself in one of his sequels, it belongs in a museum. And I say that all the time. I love that line. If you've only seen one of the more recent films and find them somewhat wanting, you owe it to yourself to check out the original to see how fresh and original these blockbuster films once felt. Yeah. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite movie. I don't have to tell you why it's great. You just know it's great. Instead, what follows is a list of very personal moments, which I didn't care to outline. Critics, 1-star reviews. The thrills are fully consumed while you're seeing this movie, and it's totally over when it's over. It's a workout. You feel as if you've been to the desert digs. At the end, your mind is blank, yet you're parched. You're puffing hard. You want relief. I felt none of those emotions here, folks. How about you?
Was he like riding a bike while he was watching the movie?
Was he wearing a VR helmet while watching this? One would think that a collaboration between Steven Spielberg and George Lucas would produce something better than this giggly pastiche of a Republic cereal. Someone's trying to use old-timey references to seem more educated. Look at you. The picture is offering you a pact. You agree to be a kid again, in return for which Raiders will give you old-time movie thrills expressed in slick modern cinematic terms. No thanks. I hate that person. Yeah. I don't even know them.
You don't have to. You know everything you need to know about them from that review.
That's the same type of person to voluntarily explain what their diet program is. I don't care. My big complaint, take Indiana Jones out of the story and nothing changes. The Nazis still find the Ark, still open it, and die.
Fair.
Very fair. Amazon, 5-star reviews. I love it when Nazis melt. May they all meet that fate. Signed, Pee Wee Herman. My kids, Gen Zers, hadn't seen this, so I put it on for them. There are so many references to movies like this in our culture. I feel like they're necessary for an understanding of popular culture. Indie doesn't disappoint. There are a few things here and there that you couldn't do if you were making the movie today. Like what? I think what?
I mean, the whole reference about her being so young and whatever, they would have definitely avoided that.
Fair point. I think my kids even noticed the differences in how male and female characters and foreigners were treated versus how they are typically in more recent productions. Still a good romp. How they treat foreigners so shitty. He wasn't disrespectful toward him in this film. And how are they foreigners? They were the foreigners in a foreign land. Aha.
Yeah. Well done, sir.
Again, trying to shoehorn an agenda that's not there. God, I hate these people. When this movie came out, I was a much younger man, but I had a full-time job. Still, I saw this movie 6 times in 5 days. What's your full-time job, paperboy? Because
that's a lot.
I saw Pulp Fiction in theater 3 times in 6 months, and I thought that was a stretch. Okay. Grandma just starting to get into Indiana, and the little boy as his sidekick. Looks like Grandma just admitted that she's in stage 1 of dementia, because that's Temple of Doom. This movie sucks. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas suck also.
Wow.
That's Amazon 1-star reviews. I'm sorry. Amazon 1-star reviews. This movie sucks. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas suck also.
All right. He's clearly got his opinions.
Which are wrong. The casual colonialism of Indiana Jones. Again, here's someone with an axe to grind, but no common sense. Just a handle and no blade. That's mine. I'm coining that phrase.
But that was the whole review.
Yeah. Here's someone with an axe to grind, but no comment. So, yeah. Here's someone with an axe to grind. That's what I said. Oh, sorry. The casual colonialism of Indiana Jones. That was their review.
That was the whole review. It's amazing. It's amazing how different that was than the previous one. And they both suck.
And they're not even true. How is he trying to colonize a desert in Africa? Fucking people are much hokier than I had remembered. Plot holes, bad acting, cardboard characters, flat dialogue. Ugh. The dialogue is a little flat. I can admit that. Cardboard characters. Crazy. Okay, too much action. No time to rest. Too many special effects overproduced. It's like a bombardment of zesty images, one after another, etc. I think some might really like this movie, but this is the first time I didn't care for Harrison's performance. I understand that many people like this, but I like Ford in his later productions, like his dramas. I'm probably in the minority out of everyone who's seen this film. Most like it, I've heard, just being the general public. Were they like a big Regarding Henry fan or What Lies Beneath? Liked it way better when it first came out. Unfortunately, the acting and storyline isn't as good as today's standards. Some people like the classics. It's still great to watch, but for the first time viewers, it will be corny since you're used to modern films. I watched 1966 Batman TV show and it was horrible, but when I was a kid, it seemed so awesome. Same thing with Indiana Jones and etc. Shows like I Love Lucy still seem okay by modern, this guy keeps typing that wrong, you moron, modern standards to me. Anyway, it's not bad if you can't find anything else, but it is corny to me.
You know, I hate to think that just because it doesn't have like a bunch of flashy CGI fights that people would look at it and say, this movie's corny because it has, actual stunts and, real action. I like to think that that's not dead just because Marvel, and I love Marvel movies, but, there is a value to actually having two people interact with each other over just CGIing it.
Right. That's ludicrous. Kevin Israel, did Blake Fulton gut the sacred cow?
Yeah, see, I know that this is going to end up being a thing, and we're going to have to go to the viewers because I say he did not, and I already know Kevin's going to say he did, and so we're going to have to put it to a vote.
I agree. You're exactly right. He did gut it. He made a lot of great points. You can't sit there and say he didn't.
I think he did. You did a fantastic job. You did, and I have both of our guest winners did fantastic jobs with their movies.
Yes,
and I think it shows that some of our guests, while we love our guests, some of them come on and they probably didn't listen to how this podcast works, and you guys obviously have listened and get it. So kudos to you. You did a fantastic job. You put together a great argument. Your multi-universe argument was, like I said, fascinating, but for me, you did not. And I still adore this movie, but I see where you guys are coming from, and I'm willing to allow our esteemed listeners to make the call.
Audience vote it shall be. Blake, what do you want to promote? Where can we find you? What are you up to? Or do you just want to stay in obscurity so your job won't fire you?
Yeah, that probably sounds right. When I was having this mic shipped up because I was going to be on a podcast, because some folks, we have folks on our labor lawyers will be on an HR podcast or something. So I just left it kind of random. It's just, a podcast. So, no, nothing for me to promote. I don't think so. Thanks for the opportunity, though, guys. I appreciate it and enjoyed it. Had a great time.
You're very, very welcome.
Absolutely.
Thanks for awesome. Kevin Israel. Where can we find you?
KevinIsrael.com for dates and whatnot. And more importantly, leave us some reviews, leave us some ratings on your podcast platform of choice. We can't express enough, even though we try to, how important it is to us, not just for the success of the podcast, but we also like seeing it and like getting your feedback. It warms the cockles of our hearts.
guttingthesacredcow.com is where you can find all that information. Don't forget, follow us on YouTube. Help us reach that magical 1,000 subscribers so we can make a few Deutsche Marks or shekels or lira or whatever you want to call it, or euros and be modernized.
We'll even take a Bitcoin.
Sure. Not Dogecoin, though. Whoops. But guttingthesacredcow.com is where you find all that. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, TikTok. Yeah, I know we don't floss, so we're not going to, lip sync while wearing thongs. At least not this account. That's our OnlyFans account. Another OnlyFans reference, Kevin. You were worried I was going to get one in there, weren't you?
We almost made it.
KevinGoatee.com, as well as Kevin Goatee on the Instagram. Follow me. You can get my NFL picks. 54.6% against the spread. Remember, 52.5 is even, so I'm ahead of the curve. And you can watch my daughter eat treats as I give my NFL picks. KevinGoatee.com, guttingthesacredcow.com, GTSC podcast on Twitter. Blake Fulton, you are fantastic. So this is listen. A lot of people are like, I could do this. Some of what the panelists do or the gutters do. Some of them can't. The listeners, 2 for 2.
Well done, sir.
Well done, Blake. Thanks again. We'll see you guys later. Take care. Peace.